Retro Racing Managers League. The Grand Prix 2 World Championship continues in 1990, and it's the 12th race of the season, the Italian Grand Prix from Monza. Jake Sanson here with you in the commentary box, and it's been one of the closest qualifying sessions in Grand Prix racing history to bring us to this point. It really is an absolutely astonishing lineup for this Grand Prix, and at a critical point in the championship when several drivers are still very much in the hunt for the title fight. In fact, mathematically speaking, anybody can still win the title, but realistically, it is a few drivers that have the chance to go for glory. Ayrton Senna's win at Belgium definitely giving him a chance to get back into the title hunt. Riccardo Patrese leads the way on 70 points from Mika Häkkinen on 64, Gerhard Berger on 63, Ayrton Senna on 56, Nelson Piquet and Derek Warwick both on 50, ahead of Mauricio Gugelmin on 48. So that's 7 realistic title contenders, but let's not forget that the Tyrrell drivers, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Jean Alesi, still have a hand to play in this season, and they are certainly right back on the pace where they were always threatening to be here at Monza. Those fast Honda engines definitely towards the sharp end. In fact, it's Hondas in the top 4. Alain Prost in the Brabham is on pole position from Thierry Boutsen in the Williams. Then it's Frentzen and Alesi, the two Tyrrells, that are 3rd and 4th on the grid. Riccardo Patrese and Ayrton Senna make it an all-Honda first 3 rows. Then Nigel Mansell's Ferrari pops it up on 7th place ahead of Gerhard Berger's McLaren. Andrea De Cesaris in the Lotus is alongside Mika Häkkinen in the Brabham. Mauricio Gugelmin and Nelson Piquet come next up in the Leighton House and Benettons. And then it's Adrian Fernandez and Michele Alboreto in the 2 Arrows car, Stefano Modena in the Ferrari and Alessandro Nannini in the Benetton. Row 9 is Derek Warwick and Eddie Cheever from Ivan Capelli and Nicola Larini, the 2 Italians towards the back of the field. Then it's the pre-qualifiers. Michael Schumacher went fastest in the qualifying session. JJ Leto, the race winner, is there in 22nd on the grid from Johnny Herbert and Eric Bernard. And then it's Damon Hill and Roland Ratzenberger that fill out the grid for the 1990 Italian Grand Prix. You can hear that the klaxon has gone 53 laps around the Monza circuit, and it's definitely going to be an incredibly tough race. Prost in pole position in the Brabham. Red lights on. When they go out, we'll be racing for the 1990 Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Let's race at Monza. It's a good start from Boutsen. He charges away in front of Alain Prost. No problem at all for the Williams to cut through. And I think Alesi's got a killer start as well. In fact, I think he's moved up into 2nd in the Tyrrell. He's moved up to the lead. Absolute firecracker start from Jean Alesi as the Tyrrell goes into Retifiglio in the lead of the race. And Frentzen trying to charge his way through into 3rd position as well. Absolutely sensational start. Terrible start for the McLarens. They are down in 9th and 10th. And in fact, that's Senna going into the back of one of the Leighton House cars, I think, that has now gone off onto the gravel. We need to have a look at that again on the replay. Mansell getting a very good start in front of the Tifosi here as well in the Ferrari. Brilliant start by De Cesaris in the Lotus and Gugelmin's Leighton House. Senna caught out at the start. Did he go into the back of the Leighton House? He did. He just missed his braking point. And that's disastrous bad news for Gugelmin, because he's now in the gravel at the Retifiglio chicane at turn 1. And it seems as though there's several other cars in dire straits. Gugelmin is there on the gravel trap and he is beached at the curb. Now, that could be an investigation by the stewards into Ayrton Senna missing his braking point and gaining an advantage because he pushed Gugelmin off the circuit effectively and now is down in front. And that's Boutsen. He takes on Alesi and gets the lead away from the Frenchman. So Thierry Boutsen in the Williams now takes the lead ahead of Jean Alesi's Tyrrell. His teammate Frentzen is there in 3rd position right behind as the Red Bull Timken Tyrrell cars are running 2nd and 3rd with Alain Prost in the Brabham right behind them. Now Brabham really could use a good result for Prost here because he's had a miserable start to his campaign with the team. He's been with them since the British Grand Prix. He has led almost every race since he joined them, and he has yet to finish a single one of them. And that's Frentzen making the move on Alesi. Prost has a think about going past the Frenchman as well. But it is Frentzen through into the position as Häkkinen drops back to 12th position. Now I wonder, has Häkkinen got damage? We need to scroll through and find out. No, Häkkinen's just had a terrible start by comparison to some of the other drivers in the field. Here's Patrese having a look at Nigel Mansell in the Nike Ferrari. And it's a big lunge up the inside from Patrese. He almost clatters into the side of Prost's Brabham as he comes through. So now Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari in 6th position needs to try and take on Riccardo Patrese's Williams. But it's Boutsen who leads. Frentzen, Alesi, Prost, Patrese, Mansell, Senna and De Cesaris. And Mansell keeps his footing on the home straight. This could be a move on the Williams. Senna's right in there as well. They've got to be thinking very carefully about how they do this. Senna's going to try and get through on the inside of Mansell instead. And Senna does get there. In fact, he's going to go for the inside of Patrese as well. This is why Senna is so good. He manages to get both of them in one fell swoop and is up into 5th position now. But I'm fairly sure he's going to be under investigation by race control for his move on Mauricio Gugelmin at the first corner. So Boutsen is leading and pulling away as a result of Frentzen getting past Alesi. And now Prost is having a think about Alesi too. And he gets there. Much better from Alain Prost so far. The Brabham driver really starting to make this count now. I think he's got to consider the fact that his title aspirations in 1990 are well and truly over. But he is rebuilding with the Brabham team in the hope that in 1991 with the Ilmor engine program, they will have something a little bit special as De Cesaris tries to make a bid on Nigel Mansell and the Ferrari. And he is not quite able to make it work. But De Cesaris, of course, is on home soil. He would really like to have a good result here at Monza. So Frentzen leads the battle to charge after Boutsen. A thrilling start for the moment for the Tyrrell team. 2nd and 3rd, Frentzen. Oh, sorry, 2nd and 4th, I should say, because Prost has got through, obviously. But now Senna is trying to come past John Alesi. Also with the Honda engines in that McLaren, of course, and Senna is there to the inside line. Alesi trying to hold it round the outside, but Senna's got him. Ayrton Senna, all of a sudden coming alive in this title battle. But here comes Alesi drawing back alongside. And watch out for Patrese. Patrese in the Williams is trying to come through as well here. Monza is alive with some screaming horsepower. Patrese's going to try and get past Senna and Alesi, but he can't get past either of them. Alesi holds his nerve on the 1988 world champion. And so Senna has to concede. Now we're on board with Nannini. That's the Ferrari of Stefano Modena in front of us. He's made a terrific start, actually, in the Ferrari. And the substitute, who is going to have to stand aside for the up-and-coming rookie Michael Schumacher. Oh, that's Berger getting De Cesaris. So Berger gets past Andrea De Cesaris. A nice move there from the McLaren. And let's not forget that for a long time, Berger was leading the Drivers' Championship, so he's now in 3rd place, rapidly being caught by his Brazilian teammate Ayrton Senna after his awful start to the season, but now Senna is bouncing back and doing so in fine style here as well. So here is Berger, 8th position. So this is going to be a thrilling battle as Modena has got the move now on De Cesaris in the Ferrari. And Modena makes the move, and that's Piquet going through as well. Piquet and Fernandez both seem to have made their bids. Oh, that's Nannini, sorry, into 10th position. So Nannini has got past De Cesaris too, and now Adrian Fernandez in the Arrows is next up. But here's Frentzen with Alain Prost all over the back of him. So this can end up getting pretty spicy between these two, as Frentzen and Prost are now dueling for 2nd place. And Prost has got a run on the German driver up in front of him. The two most powerful cars on the grid, Brabham and Tyrrell. Prost has got a good chance, but the second he pulls out of the Tyrrell slipstream, he's not quite able to overhaul him. The Tyrrell has got the fastest car in a straight line. Brabham is not far away from it. But Prost essentially needs to stay right in behind Frentzen and get as close as humanly possible to the Tyrrell, and then hope that he's got a chance to storm up the inside. But Thierry Boutsen is just disappearing out in front. It's a thrilling charge away from him. So De Cesaris is in 11th position as he battles away with Fernandez and Piquet. Those two are going to be teammates at Arrows next year, with a lot of South American influence coming in. And that's the move on De Cesaris from Fernandez. He gets through. Piquet has not been able to. But check out Alain Prost. He's really got the option now on Frentzen. He's going to stay behind him. He actually blips the throttle in the straight line there, because he's going to come at him from a long way back into the Variante Ascari. He just can't quite get close enough though. And Modena is going to have a crack at Gerhard Berger, I do believe. So the Tifosi have got a lot more to shout about for Ferrari these days. Their mid-season form rejuvenation definitely coming at the right time for the Italian Grand Prix and the Italian Tifosi. They're delighted to see Mansell and Modena fighting up at the front end of the field again. So here is Alain Prost having his claim on the back of Frentzen. And Patrese is going to have a look at Alesi. But again, the Williams just can't quite get close enough. But it's interesting that Boutsen has got well clear. Now, I wonder if Boutsen is on a light fuel load, and that is why he's been able to stretch out the advantage. He's certainly on a lighter fuel load than Frentzen, who's on a one-stop strategy. Prost is on a two-stopper. And so is the race leader, Thierry Boutsen. Senna's on a two-stop. Alesi's on a one-stop, as is Patrese and Mansell, Berger and Modena. So you can see the drivers that have decided to go for a two-stopper. That's Boutsen and Prost. So Boutsen's trying to pull out as much of a gap as he can in the Williams to hold this lead. And there goes the move. Frentzen has to yield as Prost gets by into second place. Now Prost is going to start to pull away now. He's going to open up the taps and really start to stretch away. Senna is going to close up on Frentzen as well, because of course he's on a one-stop strategy, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, in the Tyrrell. And Senna's on a two-stopper, just like Boutsen and Prost. Now, this is an interesting strategy up at the front end of the field, because a handful of drivers are on two-stoppers. The majority are on a one-stop strategy. Oh, big movement from Piquet down the straight there, and it was almost a big accident from Fernandez. So Fernandez just about got out of that one in time, but that could have been very scary indeed. Nelson Piquet determined that he's not done with Grand Prix racing yet. Benetton did not renew his contract for 1991. They decided to opt for Martin Brundle and rising star Mark Blundell for Benetton in 1991. As Senna makes his bid on the inside of Frentzen, and it just doesn't quite happen for him. So he's going to try again down the straight, and surely now Senna, with a lighter car and a similar Honda engine, should have no trouble getting past Heinz-Harald Frentzen into the first corner. But Frentzen's defending, holding the inside line. So Senna can't find a way through at the moment. But there's Prost in the Brabham in second place. Now he's already got well clear of Frentzen on a lighter fuel load. He's got to make good use of this strategy as, Herbert nearly ploughs straight into the back of Ivan Capelli. And this is a good race so far from Johnny Herbert. He is the leading driver of the pre-qualifiers in this race. The Dallara going well. Only 3 places behind the 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet, and only 2 behind Mika Hakkinen, who's fighting for the title. But here's Derek Warwick in the Lotus. He comes through and makes his move stick in the Yellow Pages Lotus as they run towards the end of their season. They're going to have a complete rebrand for 1991. They're going to be the Works Renault team. So Lotus and Renault will be together again as Eric Bernard now shapes up a move on Johnny Herbert. There's Leto, Schumacher, Cheever and Alboreto are battling away with Nicola Larini. Then Gugelmin down the back, and Damon Hill and Roland Ratzenberger are giving chase. Meanwhile, Piquet appears to have got past his teammate Nannini. So the Benettons have swapped positions. I wonder how much of that is the Benetton team strategy. Of course, Benetton have decided to completely clear out their driver lineup for 1991. They didn't want to let Alessandro Nannini go. They wanted to keep him on. But Nannini signed a deal with McLaren as Schumacher gets the move on JJ Leto and moves up into 19th place, chasing after Johnny Herbert, who is in 18th. Schumacher clearly wants to be the leading pre-qualifier. We've got a great scrap on the home straight. That's Nannini, Hakkinen and Capelli having a good go of it. And Schumacher has gone alongside Johnny Herbert. And he should make that move stick in the Reynard to move up into 18th place. And in fact, one of the Monteverdis has got through on the inside. Herbert is leaving the braking very late indeed, and Schumacher doesn't get the move in the end. Senna has got past Frentzen. Sorry, I missed that one, but Senna has got past Frentzen and is now there in third position, stretching away the gap. Now, this is the long-term effort, because at the moment, Frentzen, on a one-stop strategy, is still looking like a sensible option for the race win here. It's going to take a while to get to that point, because we're only on lap 7 of 53. But certainly at the moment, it is looking good for Tyrrell, because they've got Frentzen and Alesi, effectively 1 and 2, if they're on a one-stop strategy, battling with the likes of Boutsen, Prost and Senna, who are ahead of them currently at the moment, but A, not by much, and B, on a two-stop strategy, so they will lose more time. But being on the lighter fuel load means they can go a little bit faster. How is that going to counteract as JJ Leto squabbles in behind Michael Schumacher's Reynard, trying to move up into 19th place. Down the back straight, up towards the Parabolica once again. Senna in third position in the McLaren, chasing after Boutsen and Prost. All 26 of the race starters are still going at Monza. It's been a very decent start, actually. And here's Patrese battling away again with Jean Alesi. Alesi is having a good chance here. They're both on one-stop strategies. Alesi is not going to yield. He's going to brake very late into the chicane, and he gets bypassed Patrese. No problem at all. No questions asked either. Fernandez is up into 8th place now in the Arrows. He's doing a great job. So Fernandez, let's see what fuel strategy he's on. He's on a two-stop strategy, as well. And a very light fuel load for the Arrows. That's why he's making progress. The Cesaris and Modena are on one-stops. So are Berger and Hakkinen, although Piquet is on a two-stop strategy and is really struggling to make progress in the Benetton. Maybe that's why they decided not to renew his contract for next year. Nannini is on a two-stop strategy. He's McLaren-bound in 1991 alongside Gerhard Berger. Capelli looks like he's on a short he's on a long two-stop strategy. Warwick is on a one-stop. Bernard is on a two-stopper. That's why he's going so well, as is Herbert and Schumacher. Leto on a two-stop strategy as well. Someone's slowing. It's Hakkinen. Hakkinen with a gearbox problem. Yet again, the Brabham, it just doesn't seem to suit this Honda engine because, for whatever reason, the package with Brabham and Honda has not been working out. They've only had one win all season for Mika Hakkinen at Imola, and it seems that in the first few laps, the gearbox always seems to seize in this Brabham. And I'm afraid it's done it again here. This time, it's Mika Hakkinen that goes first. Oh, that's Patrese! Patrese's off! Brake problems! Now, what on earth has happened there? Patrese is slowing. Oh, and Nannini's hit him! Nannini's hit him and crashed into the Williams. So, a disaster for Alessandro Nannini, but he has hit Patrese's Williams as Patrese's pulling off. So, I want to see this again. Oh! A big shunt for Nannini. I don't think he realised what Patrese was doing. Patrese was actually retiring from the race with failed brakes. And I want to see it just one more time, but that's a pretty awful moment. Look, Patrese was pulling off and Nannini just happened to go the same way and struck the back of the Williams. A big accident for the two drivers. So I'm afraid both Patrese and Nannini are out of the Italian Grand Prix of 1990. Now Nannini could well have a problem here because that was a big accident and I really hope he's okay, but the Benetton driver certainly taking the brunt of that impact as Patrese slows to a crawl on the home straight. But the two Italians coming off at the final corner then, Riccardo Patrese and Alessandro Nannini, in big trouble. Oh, and I'm hearing that there's been an issue from race control regarding Ayrton Senna. Apparently, for his manoeuvre at the first corner with Mauricio Gugelmin, Ayrton Senna, who is currently in third place, is going to pick up a 10-second penalty. Now, that is controversial because obviously Senna is fighting for the victory and the championship lead. So he will have 10 seconds added to his race time as a penalty for his incident with Gugelmin. Oh, and that's Capelli. Capelli going off. And he spins at the Variante Ascari and he's left the car right in the middle of the race circuit. Oh, and he's hit. I did wonder if someone was going to go off. And several drivers going off then. Oh, my goodness. Absolute carnage after that spin. Cars going off everywhere, left, right and centre. We need to see that again in several stages as well because Capelli goes off, hits the gravel. The cars behind are trying to avoid it. Bernard has to go left and actually catches the gravel. Somehow he avoids it. Warwick doesn't. Warwick goes off. So does the Dallara. So does the Reynard. So several cars going off here. We need to watch this one back in stages. It's one of the biggest incidents of the season. So Bernard is there first. Ah, there's an overtaking move going on. That's why. So Bernard gets by first on Warwick. He goes left. So does Warwick. Warwick goes off into the gravel. And he goes up in the air, spinning round. And I think a Dallara has gone off behind him as well. So is Schumacher in the Reynard. But he's gone back on the circuit right in front of the Leighton House. How did he miss him? So this is on board with JJ Leto. This will be an interesting one to observe. Because we've got cars going through there. Schumacher we now ride on board with as he avoids this stricken Leighton House. But they're all going off essentially in exactly the same place. The Dallara's gone off. Leto's gone off. Schumacher's gone up in the air. How has Schumacher's car not been badly damaged? That is absolutely extraordinary. But Capelli gets back on the road in front of Schumacher. Herbert's gone off. Warwick's gone off. Larini's gone off. And Alboretto's made up several places in one fell swoop. As Herbert tries to get going again, Warwick will try to do likewise, and so will Nicola Larini. Herbert rejoins. Larini spun off. The other Ligier has retired. That's Eddie Cheever. So Cheever's car is parked up and done for the day. He must have stalled the engine. Meanwhile, Larini has spun-turned the car and is facing the wrong way. So Capelli really has caused all sorts of carnage. Meanwhile, Derek Warwick is reversing his Lotus back onto the road. That is definitely one of the most chaotic incidents I've seen in the Retro Racing Managers League. As Derek Warwick gets going again, but down at the back of the field, and that's a big moment in this race. So Thierry Boutsen leads the Italian Grand Prix from Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, but we now know that Senna is going to receive a 10-second penalty for his manoeuvre on Mauricio Gugelmin at the start of the race that pitched the Leighton House off the road and down the back of the field. Now, that isn't going to do much to alleviate the problem for Leighton House, but it certainly punishes Ayrton Senna for gaining a position by contact. And that is the reason for the penalty. Advantage by contact, and he's lost 10 seconds, which will be added to his race time at the end of the Grand Prix. That would currently mean he is down in 6th, actually, and not in 3rd, as he is on the road. Piquet's having a great battle with De Cesaris, but he's due into the pits. In fact, I think the two stoppers, are going to start coming into the pit lane very soon indeed. But Piquet in 10th is going to be the first of those, but he hasn't made the progress he wanted to. And as the 3-time world champion comes into the pits, he's got to be wondering what he needs to do to change his fortunes. It is a far cry from when he won the Brazilian Grand Prix back in the second round of the championship, having finished 2nd in the USA. His last podium finish was last time out in Belgium, of course, and that's a slow pit stop for the Benetton team. As into the pits comes Michael Schumacher, the new Ferrari recruit for 1991. And he comes in. Now, Piquet was on in the pit lane for quite a long time, actually. It was a long stop at Benetton, but it's a long stop at Reynard as well. So maybe the pit stops in this 2-stop strategy race to go that bit further or just a bit longer because the car drinks a bit more fuel. So Boutsen leads Prost by 6.2 seconds. Senna is in 3rd, although he will have 10 seconds added onto his race time for his error at the start of the Grand Prix. There's Alain Prost in the Brabham Honda. It's going to be the Brabham Ilmor for 1991. It'll be interesting to see how that engine goes, actually. But they know it's going to be a building year. It won't be the easiest race season for them in terms of development, but they know what to expect and they know how interesting things can be for them in 91. But it's a long-term project and Prost appears to be on board with it. So they will lose the Honda backing, but they will keep the Martini sponsorship. Apparently there's going to be a lot more of a Welsh influence on the car based on the welcome of Ilmor Engineering. Ilmor themselves are not actually Welsh, you understand, but team boss Ewan Gale is, and so are several key members of the engine department. As JJ Leto comes into the pits in the Monteverde, the man who won the pre-qualifying race, his first pre-qualifying win of 1990. So far, so good at Williams for this man, Thierry Boutsen. His teammate already out of the race, I'm afraid, after a brake failure, and then got hit into by Alessandro Nannini. I can tell you that Nannini has gone to the medical centre for checks, because it is a pretty solid accident that he's had there. Alain Prost, 2nd position. Ayrton Senna, 3rd. Fredson, Alesi, Fernandez, Mansell, Modena, De Cesaris and Berger is the top 10 at the moment. And since his layoff, Berger really hasn't had the same sort of aggressive form that he had. I guess he wants to just try and bag as many points as humanly possible, which he couldn't do at the Belgian Grand Prix, of course, but it is fair to say that his form has slipped somewhat. I think his easing off of the gas and his 3-race ban has definitely caused a little bit of aggravation for the Austrian, who prior to this had never finished lower than 3rd in a Grand Prix this year, and is now currently in 10th position. So Berger really struggling on his return in that McLaren, which he will be driving again next year. Here's Boutsen. Problems for his teammate. So far, no problems for Thierry Boutsen. He's on a light fuel load, so the Belgian will want to make up for his retirement at Spa, because from his point of view, Thierry Boutsen had the Belgian Grand Prix pretty much won, and he had mechanical problems that stopped him from getting the victory. It was certainly looking good for him. Crazy race last time out at Spa, but he could easily have won it. But then you could say that about so many people at Spa-Francorchamps. It was actually this man who got the job done, Ayrton Senna, despite running out of fuel as he crossed the finish line. He still managed to win the very dramatic and very controversial Belgian Grand Prix of 1990. Although the teams have gathered together and stated that work does need to be done on the tarmac for the 1991 season, because the wet weather conditions played havoc with the aging tarmac. They're looking to do a resurfacing job for the 1991 season so that they can have a solid Belgian Grand Prix again. But here is Thierry Boutsen, riding a good race up at the front end of the field, making up for the disappointment of Spa. And into the pits comes Senna. Senna's made the pit stop. So Larini's in the pits, but then so too is Ayrton Senna. So the Brazilian comes into the pit lane. And it is the McLaren team that make the first pit stop amongst the leaders. And Adrian Fernandez in the Arrows comes into the pits as well. This could be a problem for Senna, depending on the timing of it. Well, Fernandez comes in, and fortunately Senna will not get held up then. Very close to the Arrows mechanics as he comes through. But okay for Senna. But he's still going to have that 10 seconds added on to his race time for his problems with Mauricio Gugelmin at the start of the Grand Prix. So Eric Bernard pits in from P12. The Monteverdi doing a fair job at the moment. Obviously up there due to the crazy flotsam and jetsam that we saw from Capelli's spun Leighton-House. And how Capelli is still down in, he's still there in about 9th position is baffling considering all of that. So he spun the car, got it going again, and because everybody else fell off around him, Capelli was actually able to rejoin in about 12th, 13th position, but then we've had some pit stops of late. And that's Larini unlapping himself from the Tyrrells. What is Nicola Larini up to? I suppose he's on fresher tyres, and Frentzen and Alesi are on a very solid race rhythm because they're on a one-stop strategy. So from their point of view, they don't want to rush things here, and so they've let Larini go and unlap himself in the Ligier. As Alain Prost crosses the line in 2nd position. It has to be said, it's a miserable Italian Grand Prix for Ligier, with Eddie Cheever already out of the race trying to dodge the carnage of Ivan Capelli's spinning Leighton-House. And Larini was caught up in it with a spin, and that has now put him a lap down on the rest of the field. So Boutsen leads, Prost 2nd, Senna has pitted, so he's down to 10th. Although in actuality he is 12th, if you add the 10-second penalty to his race time. And that does actually put him now behind Mauricio Gugelmin. So from the Leighton-House point of view, I think that would seem as justice seemed to be done. But only if Gugelmin ends up finishing ahead of Senna, I guess. So it's going to be an interesting one, but 10 seconds penalty for Senna is going to be the verdict. Here's Piquet making his bid on Damon Hill. And Piquet gets alongside the Dallara, and that will be no problem at all for the Benetton as the other Dallara comes into the pit lane for a pit stop. That's Johnny Herbert into the pits. So the rest of the field still going strong. Now you can see how much time the likes of Schumacher and Warwick have lost in their incident earlier on. As Alain Prost there, still running in 2nd place. It can't be long before his pit stop, and it isn't going to be long before Thierry Boutsen's either. As the Williams driver comes across the line, I think he's going to be in on this lap. Indeed he is. You can see the green pit logo flashing up on the car. That essentially means that he is due into the pits on this lap. And Johnny Herbert gets out of the pits right in front of Alain Prost in the Brabham. And the Frenchman shakes his fist at Johnny Herbert as he returns to the circuit. That was a very annoyed and frustrated Alain Prost, but I don't think Johnny Herbert actually did anything wrong there. That was just pure frustration from the Frenchman at being in the situation he's in. It's not a situation he wants to be in, but ultimately he's still got a race to win. Now Frentzen and Alesi are going to go into 1st and 2nd place when Boutsen comes in for the first of 2 stops and Prost follows in. I think they're both going to come in on the same lap, actually, thinking about it. No, Prost is going to go 1 lap longer. But the 2 Tyrrells are going to be first and second in this race, ahead of Mansell in 3rd position. And possibly Modena in the Ferrari will move up into 4th place. So there's a genuine chance of these kind of things happening now. We'll have to see how it all plays out. And this is obviously as significant for the Constructors' Championship as it is for the Drivers' Championship. At the moment, it is currently McLaren that leads the manufacturer's standings with 121 points. Williams have 99, Tyrrell have 98, and Benetton have 87. So they're the 4 teams ultimately fighting for the Constructors' Championship. Brabham and Lotus have an outside chance on 69 and 66, but they've had so many retirements, the Brabham team. Their gearboxes just do not last a race distance. And into the pits comes Thierry Boutsen. So the race leader in the Williams makes his pit stop. And hopefully this time, the race leader is going to remain the race leader this time over the course of the proceedings. Because he's not had the best of luck of late. But the Williams team go to work. It's going to be about 10 seconds for the pit stops, as we know. I reckon that means that the one-stoppers will probably take about 12 seconds or so. But that is a fast stop from Williams. 9.7. A fast pit stop for them. Frentzen and Alesi go through. Mansell will go by. And I'm fairly sure Modena's Ferrari will as well. So out onto the circuit goes the Williams of Thierry Boutsen. And you can see there Modena just gets through in the Ferrari up into 5th position. So that is as expected. And Alesi's just got past Frentzen. And that's why! Frentzen with an engine failure. Oh! Unbelievable. Frentzen was due to take the lead of this Grand Prix. But I'm afraid the Tyrrell Honda engine has gone up in flames. Frentzen with more bad luck. He's still searching for that elusive 3rd Grand Prix victory. The young rookie has been exceptional in 1990, but the luck has not been in the last few races for him. So Frentzen, who was due to take the lead of the Italian Grand Prix, is now out of the Italian Grand Prix, and that will hand the lead of this race to Jean Alesi, who in turn is also searching for his 3rd Grand Prix win. Devastating for the fans back home in Germany, and certainly for team boss Sam Hall. That is not what he wanted to see. So it's all up to his teammate now, Jean Alesi, who goes through as Prost comes into the pits. So Prost in the Brabham makes his way into the pit lane on the end of lap 18. And that will hand the lead of the Italian Grand Prix to the Tyrrell of Jean Alesi. And in fact, he goes by now. So Alesi takes the lead at Monza. Another fast stop from Brabham, 9.3. Because they can go a little bit further into the race. Mansell goes past the pits. And Boutsen's got past Modena. I can tell you that. Boutsen has made the move on Stefano Modena, who's obviously on old tyres. So Boutsen is getting on with this now. On the fresher tyres, Boutsen has closed to within 9 seconds of Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell and has pulled clear of Stefano Modena's Ferrari as Ivan Capelli comes into the pits from P10. There is Il Leone himself, Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. He really has captured the imagination of the Tifosi in these last 2 seasons, and he will stay with them for the 1991 season. He is determined to become world champion for Ferrari. He really feels this is his team, and we could see Nigel continue to extend his career for a couple of seasons with the Prancing Horse. But this will be his 3rd campaign in 1991 with Ferrari. The last man to be chosen for the Ferrari team by the late, great Enzo Ferrari. And so the Scuderia feel very loyal to Nigel Mansell. And despite his problems earlier in the season when he had to miss a few races due to injury, they have stood by him. And Nigel Mansell is still very much a part of this team. The Ferrari team have had a miserable season all in all. They've only scored 41 points in the Constructors' Championship. But all of those points, except 2 of them, have come since the 6th round of the championship at Mexico. So Ferrari have really been working hard in this second half of the season to pull some results together. And they got a 2nd and 3rd place finish at the Hungarian Grand Prix at the German Grand Prix after the exclusion of the McLaren team, which would have been a 3rd and 4th without that. Now this is Johnny Herbert battling it out with Roland Ratzenberger. And Herbert charges past the Reynard. Up another position. Reynard have actually just signed a commercial deal next year with the fast food giant McDonald's. So that's going to be an interesting livery of car in 1991. So I expect we're going to see a very different looking Reynard next year. They were Cadbury's this year. They decided to continue in the junk food market, upgrading from confectionery to fast food. So Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell. That car is, I'm told, pretty much going to stay the same in terms of livery for 1991. There may be a heavier presence from Red Bull, the Austrian energy drinks moguls that are only in their third year of distribution. They've already found amazing commercial success in Formula 1 with Tyrrell. And that was Capelli there, making his bid up the inside of Leto and getting through up into 15th position. So JJ Leto having to concede the place. 5 retirements so far. Hakkinen with a gearbox failure. Patrese had a brake failure and Nannini had nowhere to go but into him. Shiva crashed out of the race a short while ago, avoiding Capelli. And then Frentzen with an engine failure while about to take the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. Very frustrating. Now Boutsen has closed within 7 seconds of Alesi's lead. So Boutsen is now all of a sudden becoming the new favourite. And Alesi pushes too hard, spins the car. What is Alesi playing at? Alesi's just gone far too hard into the Fretafilio chicane and he's thrown away the lead. Jean Alesi completely on his own. Pushes too hard into the first corner. Let's see how he did it. There's no error warnings that came up on the car. Look, he's just carrying too much speed. Gets on the throttle. Tries to stop the car. The curb throws him off and into the wall. And Alesi spins at Monza. And the crowd have gone absolutely bananas because there goes Nigel Mansell through into the lead of the Italian Grand Prix, being chased by Thierry Boutsen. So Alesi is stationary on the exit of the curb. Modena, De Cesaris, Berger and Prost all go through. But Tyrrell have thrown away a Grand Prix victory with Jean Alesi. Alesi had a great chance to win and now he's going to have to struggle his way back. The Tyrrell has been so much faster here at Monza. But Jean Alesi has really ruined his race. He's not got any chance now, surely, to come back and get a victory unless all sorts of flotsam and jetsam happen. He's going to go straight back on the inside of Gugelmin. He's now driving with the red mist, Jean Alesi. And now Prost is taking on Gerhard Berger's McLaren. Berger chops across him. No way he's going to let Alain Prost get through. Especially when Berger is fighting for the Grand Prix victory himself. So Boutsen is less than a second behind Nigel Mansell now. Here is that battle. But listen to the fans. They are absolutely on their feet as they come into the Parabolica because Nigel Mansell is leading the Italian Grand Prix for Ferrari. That is such a stirring sight after the season they've had. And the fans are absolutely jubilant. If Ferrari take a win this year, after the stresses and the strains they've had in 1990, of all the places they could pick to do it, Monza seems pretty fitting. But that's only hearsay at the moment. We're only on lap 21 of 53. There's still a long way to go in this Italian Grand Prix and a lot of things still to play out. So it's not even close to feasible. In fact, Thierry Boutsen is now starting to attack. I was going to finish saying it's not even slightly feasible that this race is done and dusted yet. Mansell could win this Italian Grand Prix, but he's going to have a hard job of it. There's no two ways about it. He's on a one-stop strategy. If he can try and keep Boutsen behind him until he makes his pit stop, he's got a much better chance of it. But Boutsen really is going to attack. And here he comes on the far side. Mansell's going to be sporting and give him room, but he does then chop across. So that's going to really hold up the Williams charge. So Boutsen is still trying to make his play on Nigel Mansell's Ferrari. We're on board with Boutsen in the Williams. Ferrari power versus Honda power. Neither engine has really covered itself in glory in 1990. They've had all sorts of technical problems in both camps. Boutsen's got a chance on Mansell, but Mansell isn't going to make it easy. Boutsen launches to the inside. Mansell tries to hold the car around the outside, but Boutsen is there. Mansell has to concede, and Thierry Boutsen takes the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. Now Mansell's going to be in the slipstream, but his tyres are older, and there's no two ways about that either. They're about the same in terms of straight line speed. But Mansell is on all the tyres and he's going to have to pit in. So now Boutsen has essentially retaken the lead of the Italian Grand Prix on merit. As Prost, by the way, has managed to get past Gerhard Berger. So Prost is now in P5 ahead of the McLaren of Gerhard Berger. And Senna's McLaren is in 7th place. Although he doesn't appear to be too able to close up on his Austrian teammate. There's Stefano Modena in the other Ferrari as we watch Damon Hill's Converse Dallara having a bit of a battle with Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House. Good to see the Leighton Houses are back in their beautiful duck egg blue. They were in chrome for the last 2 races to celebrate Honda's return as a works manufacturer in Formula 1 as a factory racing team. And there goes Capelli up the inside of Damon Hill. Hill has to let him go. So Capelli, who will join Monteverdi in 1991. He was hoping for a stronger seat than that, really, but he will go to the Monteverdi squad in 1991, which is definitely going to help the Monteverdi team. So the battle continues. Boutsen, Mansell, Modena, De Cesaris and Prost. And of course Boutsen will remain at the Williams team for 1991 and he will be joined by the 1988 world champion Ayrton Senna. With Porsche engines coming on board for Williams as well. Oh no! Not Mansell! Not today! Oh, that's why he was slowing. Nigel Mansell, the engine dies. And a brilliant run is over for Il Leone. He gave it everything he had. What a star he's been at Monza today, but yet more problems for Ferrari. And that really does sum up their season. Mansell has been so strong today. But the Ferrari could not last the distance here at Monza. What a shame. What a shame. But it's all done and dusted now as Modena's gone into 2nd place with all of that. And I think Prost has just got past Andrea De Cesaris. Has De Cesaris got a problem now in the Lotus? No, he's just on old tyres and is now being caught by Berger, who is also on a one-stop strategy. Prost has gone through into 4th place. Into 3rd place, sorry. And Berger's trying to get alongside De Cesaris in the Lotus. De Cesaris chops across Berger. No problem at all there. And so now Stefano Modena becomes the man flying the flag for Ferrari. An Italian in a Ferrari. It's a very patriotic moment for any Italian driver. To race for Ferrari on home soil. It's a big deal. But here is Prost in 3rd position in the Brabham, and he is catching Modena based on his new tyres and his 2-stop strategy. Is Berger going to get the move on the inside of De Cesaris into the Parabolica? He's certainly having a look on the inside line. De Cesaris tries to hold it again round the outside, but Berger gets there, and that puts the McLaren up into 4th place. But De Cesaris is back alongside him, side by side, and De Cesaris is going back through on Gerhard Berger. They're side by side down to the first corner. Berger's going to have the inside line, but De Cesaris is going to have the aggression. But Berger will not give way. He holds 4th place. Brilliant racing from the 2 drivers there, Berger and De Cesaris, with plenty of experience, the 2 of them. And they've definitely made that one stick. Now here comes Senna. Senna's going to try on De Cesaris, and he can't get by for the moment. Now technically, Ayrton Senna is actually behind Jean Alesi, who is 8 seconds behind him, because Senna has a 10-second penalty left over from his transgression with Gugelmin at the start of the race. So here is Stefano Modena in the Ferrari in 2nd position, being caught rapidly by Alain Prost, with Boutsen now 6.8 seconds clear in the Williams up in front. And this is Leto getting a move on Damon Hill. So the Monteverdi gets past the Dallara, and that's put him up into 14th place. Bernard is 13th. Leto is 14th. Monteverdi are having a sensational Italian Grand Prix as Piquet pushes very hard in the first Lesmo. He was lucky to get away with that. You could hear the tyres really squirreling around. But then Piquet is having a horrible day's racing here at Monza. So it's a pretty dire situation for the Brazilian. He's due to join the Arrows team, which will have BMW engines for 1991. In a new commercial deal with the German giant. So that's going to be an interesting scenario as Modena continues on his way in the 2nd placed Ferrari. The only Ferrari left in the race after Mansell's retirement when he was leading earlier on. Boutsen got him, and then Mansell just tried to stay in the fight with him, but unfortunately the Ferrari could not go the distance today here at Monza. And so it's Thierry Boutsen who once again leads the Italian Grand Prix in the Williams Honda, which will become the Williams Porsche next year. First time that Porsche will have had an involvement in the top tier of Formula One racing since 1986, I think. No, sorry, 87, of course, because McLaren's had TAG engines, which, of course, were essentially Porsche engines. So there's a good chance that they can return to those winning ways. They've been developing their new engine as a works factory entrant in 1990. And team boss Scott Woodward has been given the keys to Williams to continue that program. And the Benetton team will take Porsche engines as well next season. So Porsche are deadly serious about making Grand Prix racing work for them, but they're doing it as an engine supplier heretofore. Alain Prost closes up on the Ferrari of Stefano Modena in the battle for second position. So still the race battle continues. And into the pits comes Modena. Now this is his scheduled pit stop. This is the one-stop strategy playing out for Ferrari then. Who knows where Nigel Mansell could have made this work too, but Stefano Modena flying the flag for Ferrari. If he can get a decent points finish, he'll be happy with that. And of course, he managed to grab a second place finish at the German Grand Prix. So he can be very happy with the way things are currently going. He's going to be moving to the Lola team for next year. Again, it's not really where Stefano Modena wanted to be, but they are looking like they're going to be a top 10 team next season, the Lola squad, and they will have Ferrari engines, which is how Modena ended up with them. I think he would have liked to stay with Ferrari, but Ferrari did not want to lose the chance to sign the German superstar Michael Schumacher. And the 21-year-old is going to be the youngest Ferrari driver for many years. And here is Derek Warwick making his bid to get past Michael Schumacher in the Reynard. Just imagine what Schumacher can do in a Ferrari next year. He's dragging this Reynard a lot higher up the order than it deserves to be at times. So Berger there in third position, going after Alain Prost in the Brabham. But he's on a one-stop strategy too, don't forget Gerhard Berger. He's actually going faster than he has gone in this sector in previous laps. The Cesaris in the Lotus is next up. Then it is Ayrton Senna's McLaren, who is closing up. And I can tell you that Senna is not actually gaining time. He's losing time. In fact, Gugelmin is now technically ahead of him as Leto is slowing. Leto has got a gearbox problem in the Monteverdi. He won beautifully in the pre-qualifying race, but JJ Leto is out of the Italian Grand Prix with a gearbox failure as Andrea De Cesaris comes into the pits in the Lotus from P5. What was originally P4, I should say, in the Lotus. But JJ Leto in the Monteverdi is just trying to get to a marshal's post, I think. And that's a real shame for the Finnish driver as he pulls the car off to the side of the racetrack. And JJ Leto is out of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, having done an amazing job earlier on in the pre-qualifying race. He really was spectacular in that and did a grand job. But it's not to be today for Leto. He really should pull off the road a little bit more because he's dangerously... Well, he's on the racetrack there. He hasn't actually pulled off the road at all. And look how close the cars are coming past. Prost is coming through. Leto could cause a major issue here if he doesn't get off the racetrack. He's actually stopped the car in the middle of the road. That is a terrible place for Leto to have stopped the car. A marshal rushes out to him. Thank goodness that didn't impede anybody's race. And, you know, incredible bravery from the marshal. Because that could have been very scary indeed. But fortunately, the race can continue without incident there for JJ Leto. I'm sure there'll be a rational explanation for that one later. But it's quite hard to quantum and fathom at the moment. So Thierry Boutsen completes the halfway mark of the Italian Grand Prix. Usually the shortest race on the calendar. We've just completed 37.5 minutes worth of it at the halfway point of the Grand Prix. As Gerhard Berger is in the pits now, the McLaren driver in for his pit stop. And it is the one-stop strategy as we know. Now, my question is, where is Mauricio Gugelmin? He's coming in for his one stop now. But Ayrton Senna wasn't really gaining ground to him. Now, this is going to be worth the battle for Leighton House, because if Ayrton Senna doesn't pull 10 seconds clear of Gugelmin, then the 10-second penalty is going to give Gugelmin the position over the Brazilian Ayrton Senna. Meanwhile, Thierry Boutsen leads the Italian Grand Prix and continues doing the stellar job he is doing. Absolutely fine effort from the Williams at the moment, as he looks so solid out in the lead of the Italian Grand Prix here at Monza. And this is exactly the kind of job he was hoping to pull off here at Monza. He only has one Grand Prix win to his name in the 1990 season, and that of course was at the French Grand Prix in fabulous style when Ferrari were not when Williams were not expecting to dominate, but they certainly had a great chance to. Is that Prost closing in now? Yes, it is. 8 seconds for the Brabham in deficit to the Williams of Thierry Boutsen. So Prost is still trying to give the Belgian a hard time, and now Prost is actually really starting to have a race he can be proud of here. And he would love to get a podium after his shocking form in 1990. He's had absolutely no luck. He started the season with Ferrari, threw his toys out of the pram and left them. That's Alboreto in 6th position. He's got problems. Alboreto was on his way into the pits. Now, if he can just get back to the pits, then maybe they can cool the brakes down and Alboreto can keep going. Alesi is in the pits for his one pit stop. Can Alboreto keep going? He needs to get back to the pits as Piquet goes by. Arrows are trying to get Alboreto into the pits, and he's just going to make it. He had to slow up. Wow, that was lucky for Michele Alboreto, as Jean Alesi will get out of the pit lane. Now, where will he get out of the pit lane? That's going to change the face of his race. The Tyrrell driver is not looking on course for winning anymore, I'm afraid. But he rejoins behind Capelli in the Leighton House and ahead of Gugelmin in his. So that shows you how much time Alesi has lost. He's come up behind Gugelmin. Here's Boutsen lapping traffic. He's just got past Larini in the Ligier. And now he is approaching Roland Ratzenberger in the Reynard. So Thierry Boutsen obviously needing to be quite careful about where he places it, but he gets by no problem. And Ratzenberger actually lifted to allow Boutsen to come by. And that's going to be enough to let Nicola Larini come through, I think, in the Ligier. He's certainly going to be alongside Ratzenberger. Oh, that got very close indeed. That could have been very nasty as Prost comes down to the first corner. And the Brabham still doing a grand job in 2nd position as Alain Prost continues to keep the team's fortunes alive. And Ayrton Senna runs in 3rd position ahead of Adrian Fernandez in the Arrows, who needs to come in for his one and only pit stop. Actually, no, I think he's on a 2-stopper, is Fernandez, isn't he? I think he might be on a very late first stop, thinking about it. So Fernandez has gone a very long way in the Arrows. Finds himself now in 4th place. Piquet, oh no, hang on, Fernandez did make a pit stop earlier on. So Fernandez is now 4th, Piquet is now 5th. Both of them need to pit again, though. Modena is 6th, Berger is 7th. Neither of them need to pit again, nor does De Cesaris. Nor does Alesi. So Fernandez and Piquet are on the bubble here because they need to make pit stops. So does Senna. So there could be quite a few teams in difficulty here because there's going to be a couple of drivers that will need to make another pit stop. I think Boutsen and Prost are okay for the top 2, no problem. But Senna's going to be hard pushed to hang on to 3rd place. The way things currently stack up, he should be able to get out in front of Modena, but it's not a guarantee. And don't forget that he'll have his 10-second penalty to add on, so he could drop behind Modena on aggregate, even if not on the road. So some very interesting challenges coming for the drivers as they continue to battle their way around the Monza circuit. Here's Alain Prost in 2nd place. He's now on lap 31 and 53, and that's Johnny Herbert. He spins in front of Boutsen, gets going again, and Larini almost goes clean into the back of him. So Johnny Herbert was lucky there. Let's see how he did it. Oh, he just completely missed his turn-in. I wonder if there's an issue for the car there, because that is a very uncharacteristic style of error for young Johnny Herbert, who 2 years ago, don't forget, walked away from an absolutely horrific looking Formula 3000 crash. He was very lucky to get out of it in one piece. Now Larini's going to make his move on Johnny Herbert. And that is no problem at all for the Ligier to finish off. And now Herbert's going to be in the clutches of Roland Ratzenberger. Thierry Boutsen is 6.3 ahead of Prost. So Prost is actually gaining a little bit of time through the traffic on Thierry Boutsen. But Boutsen still needs to make a pit stop, and so does Prost. So the Williams driver doesn't need to sweat too much here. Thierry Boutsen is still going strong. Here's Alain Prost in the Brabham. This time it's Häkkinen's car that has seized early on in the race with the broken gearbox. So Prost has clearly made light work of things this time, and that's Ivan Capelli getting it wrong at the Rettifilio. That's not the first time Capelli's made a mistake in this Grand Prix. And this time it really does put paid to any chance he might have had of getting a point today. He's on the grass, so he can try and spin turn the car around the right way. Bernard's gone through. Schumacher's gone through into 12th. And Alboretto's gone through into 13th after his brake issues. Capelli is desperately trying to get the car going again. What is he playing at? It's like he doesn't have any grip in the car on the grass. And he can't spin turn the car around. So Capelli having a very embarrassing moment as he tries to get the car spun around. He's got that wire fence to think of as well, of course. So De Cesaris laps him, and now so too does Gerhard Berger. Or was that Warwick lapping him, passing him, I think. So Capelli does get going again, albeit down in 19th place now behind Damon Hill. So it's a pretty embarrassing moment there for Ivan Capelli, as Ayrton Senna chases after Derek Warwick in the Lotus. There was a suggestion at some point in the year that Ayrton Senna could end up becoming teammates with Derek Warwick at the newly rehashed Lotus team, which will take the factory Renault engines for next year. As Alain Prost gets his move on Johnny Herbert to lap him. So Prost in the Brabham, still doing a fine job in second place, and steadily gaining on the Williams of Thierry Boutsen. The gap is down to 6.7 now. But Boutsen is not rushing things. He's got time in hand. He doesn't need to panic too much. Here's De Cesaris getting the move on Berger very easily. Berger's got a problem now. Looks like he's got brake problems as well. We've seen several drivers and several cars have issues in this Italian Grand Prix with brakes. And it's come up on the car. Gerhard Berger is now suffering from a brake problem. He's got to be very careful getting back to the pits. They can basically do a brake cooling job in the pit lane. They treat it like a normal pit stop. They put fresh tyres on. And they cool down the brake calipers with water. They spray onto the car. And that should hopefully kill the problem. But Berger is being very erratic. He's having to essentially brake with deceleration and the gearbox rather than the actual brakes on the car. But Thierry Boutsen is leading the race. There goes Alesi past Berger. No problems at all there. Oh, Alboretto's made a real hash of that. He's gone through the second Lesmo far too quickly, gone on the curbs, and now he's broken the front wing of the Arrows. Well, Michele Alboretto, I'm afraid to say, that's a big embarrassment for him. He really didn't need to do that. And that's cost him dearly. And I'm afraid the ex-Ferrari driver, he was only with Ferrari 2 years ago. And now, here at Monza, on his home circuit, he's really struggling to prove himself. After his earlier brake problems, now he's got to come into the pits again to repair that front wing. And I can tell you that Berger has made it back to the pits. But with Bernard having made a pit stop recently, Michael Schumacher is now about to move into 10th position, I do believe. With Berger going out of the pits. Yes, look, Michael Schumacher in the Reynard is up into 10th place. So Reynard are on course to get their first World Championship point. That would be spectacular for the team in 1990 with their young German star Michael Schumacher on board. And that's definitely going to give Ferrari a bit of a smile as well as their young star continues to make progress. But with Berger and Alboretto hitting trouble, it is now Schumacher who is up into 10th position on the final point. And so many drivers should be and could be ahead of him. Berger, Larini, Warwick, Alboretto, Capelli, of course, as well, having spun off. So that's 5 drivers at least who probably should be in that sort of position fighting away. And Berger is now trying to unlap himself from Thierry Boutsen. And I think Thierry did exactly the right thing there. He knew it wasn't Senna, so he just let Berger go. There's no point trying to get into a fight with the Austrian. He clearly has something to prove. So Berger on fresh tyres is pulling away from Boutsen. He clearly doesn't want anything to do with being lapped at all. And Boutsen just deciding to be sensible. He's always been a very wise driver, Thierry Boutsen. He's not the kind of driver to make silly mistakes or push too hard. He just does the minimum required of him, which is push flat out, stay solid, stay consistent. People have called him dull in the past, but you know what? He brings the car home, and he brings it home in a solid position. Now there's Prost in the Brabham, and he is pushing. The gap is now 5 seconds, thanks to Berger unlapping himself. So the Brabham team will have told Alain, push, push, Boutsen is vulnerable. And there's Ayrton Senna, who still has to make his second and final pit stop. Fernandez doesn't have to, I don't think. Oh, no, sorry, Fernandez does, and so does Piquet. Modena doesn't, though. So Senna, who is not actually finding the McLaren very easy going here at Monza, may slip behind Stefano Modena at the pit stops, as Ratzenberger is about to lose the place to Derek Warwick. Warwick's coming up alongside him. As the Rini goes into the pits in the Ligier, Warwick is about to move up into 12th place past the Reynard of Ratzenberger. So Warwick is going to try and outbrake him. We dropped it at exactly the wrong moment. I wanted to see if Warwick got through, but I'm told he did not quite finish the job on Ratzenberger. So at least we didn't miss an overtake. But Thierry Boutsen is there behind Gerhard Berger on the road, although is a good minute and 23 seconds ahead of him in actuality. Now Senna is in traffic. This is not good news for the McLaren, because currently he is looking at being quite a considerable way behind Modena and De Cesaris in terms of the aggregate times. He's got a pit stop to come, and he's got a 10-second penalty to take for nerfing Gugelmin off at the first corner. So this is not an easy time if you are Ayrton Senna. We're on board with Bernard, and Senna's going to go by. There he goes. So Ayrton Senna clearly has a point to prove. He's now coming up to close up on Derek Warwick in the Lotus to put a lap on him. And he's being held up by the Reynard of Roland Ratzenberger. So this could be entertaining for Ayrton Senna. Here comes the McLaren. Warwick is trying to get on the slipstream of Ratzenberger. And Senna is now in a rock and a hard place, although Warwick has actually just let him go. He's decided to be sensible and wait for Senna to make the move on Ratzenberger, and he'll just have him on pure pace. Now Boutsen is down to 4.8 seconds ahead of Prost. So Prost is navigating this Italian Grand Prix much better. Look at the straight line speed that Derek Warwick has compared to Senna. He's got him on the slipstream, and he could get back past him here. He does indeed. Warwick unlaps himself from Senna, and Senna is absolutely livid. Why is Derek Warwick unlapping himself? Well, the reason is that Warwick's car, in a straight line, appears to be quicker than Senna. And that is a big problem for Senna. He's on worn tyres, of course, but into the pits comes Fernandez. Piquet won't be long for the pit lane himself. But Alain Prost is steadily gaining on Thierry Boutsen, and he will have to make a pit stop too as well. In fact, Prost is into the pits on this lap, and so is Boutsen. So they're not going to be racing each other in the pit stops, it seems. They will take this race to the racetrack, but it's going to be very close, that is for sure. Now, the big question is Michael Schumacher in the Reynard going to pit again? Yes, he is. He's in 10th position, so he will make another pit stop, and that will sadly drop him out of the points. But it's been a great moment for the young German as we now go back to the leaders, and Thierry Boutsen bails into the pits in the Williams. And this is such an important pit stop. He and Prost are coming in together, but Prost is doing all the right things to get under Thierry Boutsen's skin psychologically. And the two pit crews are next to each other as well. So if anything goes wrong for Boutsen and Williams, Brabham will be the first team to know about it. In fact, Prost pulls his car to a stop right behind Boutsen. 9-second pit stop. But Prost is still going to be that couple of seconds delayed. And Boutsen will get out of the pits in the lead. Senna's come into the pits as well. So Thierry Boutsen gets out of the pits, and he still leads the Italian Grand Prix. And he gets on that throttle just that fraction earlier than Prost. So Boutsen continues to lead the Italian Grand Prix. It's going to be down to Alain Prost to really step on it and gain the ground needed. Now, where is Senna in relation to Modena? Modena is going to go past him. Modena will get into third place in the Ferrari, and there he goes. So Stefano Modena is in third place now in the Ferrari, much to the Tifosi's delight. And this is going to be a problem for Ayrton Senna because he doesn't seem to have a massive amount of straight line speed. I don't know how much of that was the wear in the tyres or whether it was just a bad moment, but Michael Schumacher is now having a bit of a tussle with Eric Bernard, and Bernard has gone through into 12th place in the Monteverdi, with Schumacher's teammate Ratzenberger not far away, and then behind is Damon Hill in the Dallara Converse. So a fascinating situation as Thierry Boutsen continues to lead the Italian Grand Prix. He's on lap 37. 17 laps remaining in the Italian Grand Prix. Here is Stefano Modena in the Ferrari, having a great race, but Senna is pulling up alongside him. Modena is not going to let him through. The fans love it. I don't care if you're a world champion. I'm in a Ferrari, I'm from Italy, and I'm at Monza. Do you really think I'm going to concede a podium now with 17 laps to go? Modena is doing everything he can to keep that Ferrari on the podium. And it's not going to be easy. I think everybody around here will know that. Senna's going to try. Here he comes. Modena again chops across on Senna. Don't even think about it. A Ferrari on the podium at Monza is meant to be, as far as the Tifosi are concerned. And they will not forgive Senna for making the move happen. Senna's in the slipstream. Here he goes. He looks one way, looks the other. Modena's keeping his car completely in the middle of the road. Senna's going to go right, in fact. But Modena surely will be able to keep him at it into the chicane. So Senna has to remain in third. The fans love this. Thierry Boutsen, meanwhile, is not loving things because Prost is catching him. The gap is down to 4.3 seconds. Gugelmin is now making a big move on Capelli to lap his teammate. That was clearly a radio call, as Gugelmin is actually now ahead of Senna on aggregate. And Gugelmin can go to the end of this race because Senna's got a 10-second penalty in third place. He's got past Modena. So Senna has got through, but he's got 10 seconds penalty to be added to his time, and that will drop him behind Gugelmin to 7th position. No wonder Senna wanted to get past Modena quickly because he wants to pull away and get ahead of Gugelmin in the Leighton House. That's the man he's really racing with now because he obviously received that penalty for nudging Gugelmin off at the first corner. So the battle continues for the Brazilian, Ayrton Senna, as we come up towards the end of the first hour of this Brazilian Grand Prix. That is the Brazilian we're watching in the Italian Grand Prix. Thierry Boutsen sets the fastest lap at 121.6. And no wonder Prost is catching him. Boutsen pushes too hard! Oh, Thierry Boutsen saves it, but that's how much pressure he's under in the Italian Grand Prix. He knows that Prost is catching him, and Prost is really giving it the beans now. He knows that the Williams driver is vulnerable. He has just set the fastest lap of the race, but you can see the Brabham appearing in the background. Prost is giving it everything to close up on Boutsen. He can sense that Brabham could win their first Grand Prix since Imola, and Alain Prost could win his first race of the season. Senna, meanwhile, is in third. And he is now starting to pull away from Gugelmin on aggregate. That's because Capelli isn't actually helping his teammate out here. Ivan Capelli going against team orders by the look of it and repassing his teammate Gugelmin. Maybe that's a potential message to the Leighton House team. You fired me, so I'm racing for myself. Thanks very much. Now Stefano Modena is now actually in trouble of being passed by the Tyrrell of Jean Alesi. Here is Alesi. He's returned to the action. And if he gets past Modena, Alesi could get a podium here because, of course, Senna's going to take a 10-second penalty. Unless he pulls 10 seconds clear of Modena, he's not going to get the podium. But Alesi's going to try and get past Modena now on the back straight. And he's done it. Alesi is through past Stefano Modena. So Alesi is through into 4th position, but with Senna's penalty, that is 3rd place for the Tyrrell driver. So fabulous stuff from Jean Alesi as he fights back into contention here at Monza. Here's Thierry Boutsen in the Williams. 14 laps to go. But Prost is still catching. Prost is still pushing. Prost is still looming behind the Williams. Through the Variante della Roggia. Into Lesmo Uno. And Alain Prost is still giving it the beans in the Brabham. He still feels that he could win this Italian Grand Prix, and that will give him such a motivational kick heading into 1991. Even a second place finish for Prost will give him so much confidence for the second half of the season. And Senna has got a problem there. He runs too wide. So Senna makes a mistake out of the Variante della Roggia. And that is clearly because he is pushing to try and increase this gap to more than 10 seconds to the cars behind him. At the present moment, he is ahead of Gugelmin, but behind Andrea De Cesaris. So on aggregate, Senna is actually in 6th place at the moment. So 3rd place is not going to go his way. And that's going to cost Senna in the Drivers' Championship too, because he could get a 3rd place finish, and that would give him 10 points, which would obviously increase his stature in the championship. He would go to 66 points, and that would put him ahead of Häkkinen and ahead of Berger, because Berger is only looking at a 10th place finish here. So Senna could move into 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship if he gets 3rd place. But he really needs a bit of luck, and he needs to push like crazy, because the likes of Alesi, Modena and De Cesaris are only a few seconds behind him, and he needs to be 10 seconds clear of them to get the podium and move into second in the Drivers' Championship, because at the moment Senna is only looking at 6th place. That's Schumacher getting wide there at the Variante della Roggia. He's looking a little bit weary there in the Reynard. Has he got a problem? Well, nothing on the dash, so I guess Michael Schumacher is okay. Thierry Boutsen coming through the second Lesmo on his charge after Schumacher. That's the next man he's got to lap. Now, Thierry Boutsen, if he takes the win here, he will move to 47 points in the championship. That'll put him 1 point behind... it'll put him 5 points behind Mauricio Gugelmin in the championship. What it will do is it'll put him 3 behind Warwick, who is in 6th place in the Drivers' Championship at the moment. This is Alboreto, making his bid to reclaim 13th place from Eric Bernard behind Thierry Boutsen. So Alboreto's going to get that move done, no problem, into the Parabolica. And Prost finds himself stuck behind the Dallara. He had to come off the throttle there. I thought for a moment the Brabham might be having a problem, but no, he was just trying to time the move on Damon Hill. And no wonder, because the gap has come down now. Well, it had come down to 3.9, but he had to lose momentum there, stuck behind Damon Hill in the Dallara. So Prost is gaining big time on Boutsen. He could win this race. And Boutsen, well, really wants to win this race, because that will put him on 47 points in the Drivers' Championship. That'll put him only 3 points behind Warwick in the championship fight. Here's Capelli getting his move on Ratzenberger. And Ratzenberger, of course, down in 18th after his pit stop. Capelli trying to get there, but Ratzenberger's not going to play ball with him. Prost getting second will put some points on the board. Don't forget that Alain Prost only has 13 points in the championship fight at the moment. Oh, that's the problem for Warwick. Warwick has an engine failure in the Lotus. Well, that definitely means that Warwick isn't going to score points today, and he will leave the Italian Grand Prix with the same amount of points that he started it with. 50 points on the board for Derek Warwick. Disastrous for the Renault engine on the Lotus team. Lotus are actually going to be working with Renault as a factory entrant next year, and this is definitely not what they wanted. So an absolute disaster as Thierry Boutsen comes up to lap Derek Warwick, and that could have been a bit messy for the Williams. But Thierry Boutsen gets through no problem past the ailing Lotus of Derek Warwick, who is coming into the first corner, as Prost is now 4.4 seconds back from Thierry Boutsen. Now Warwick's got to park this well to avoid holding up the Brabham of Alain Prost, and indeed Prost doesn't get held up by Warwick in the Lotus, who pulls off at the Rettifilio without causing an issue. Warwick is a sensible driver, but I'm afraid he's not going to finish the Italian Grand Prix today, and that's his first non-finish of the season since the German Grand Prix. So a problem there for Warwick. He had a great start to the year where he'd finished in every position in the top 6 except the victory in the first 5 races. Then he had a run of 4 retirements before bagging points at the Hungaroring and last time out at Spa. Here's Capelli, gets the move on Ratzenberger. This time Ratzenberger will not make him lose face. And Capelli gets through into 18th position, make that 17th now, because they've just passed the wreckage of Derek Warwick's Lotus. Now Prost is still pushing in second place. He's got an arrows in front of him. That's Michele Alboreto, who is in 12th position. Michael Schumacher, of course, now up into 11th place. One position outside the points again. And Prost is not going to have too many problems getting clear of Michele Alboreto. There is young Michael Schumacher, who will join Ferrari in 1991. As the team make a bold move based on the interest from their race manager, Chris Cavani, working very closely with the Ferrari team. He feels that Schumacher really is the real deal, and they want to bring him on board before anyone else gets their hands on him, essentially is the policy for 1991. And a lot of people saying that with Mansell and Schumacher on board in 91, Ferrari could well have a race-winning package. They've just got to put a better car together than they managed in 1990. The problem is they were held up a little bit by their progress in 89, which definitely didn't give them a great season. Here's Gugelmin battling away with Ratzenberger. Why is Ratzenberger unlapping himself from Mauricio Gugelmin? Has Gugelmin got a problem? No, he's just on very old tyres compared to Roland Ratzenberger, who took a two-stop strategy, don't forget. So Gugelmin is trying to keep himself ahead of a Reynard. That just shows you how the ebb and flow of a Grand Prix can work its magic. Even at Monza, it can spring up a surprise or two. 10 laps to go here at Monza. Here is Jean Alesi, who is running in 4th place. Just 6.3 seconds behind Senna, which means he'll finish ahead of him on aggregate. And Senna is likely to finish ahead of the Cesaris now, so he will drop to 5th position rather than 6th with the 10-second penalty. But it's definitely going to cost Senna a chance of a podium today. That 10-second penalty, courtesy of his incident with Gugelmin on lap 1. So Senna is not looking likely to finish on the podium today unless something happens to Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell. So Alain Prost in the Brabham is still trying to give Boutsen all the pressure he can. And he's chipping away at it, little by little, but every time he gets close to Boutsen, they end up with traffic again. And Boutsen is now actually catching up to Michael Schumacher in the Reynard. Now this could be critical because Schumacher is actually going quite quickly here at Monza. And he is still trying to keep himself relatively in the hunt in case one of the drivers up front has a problem, because Reynard genuinely could get a championship point here in the Constructors' Championship. It's only 1 point, mind you, but it would certainly do Reynard the power of good heading into 1991 in terms of their confidence, in terms of their morale. 5 teams from pre-qualifying have managed to get themselves into the championship points in the Constructors this year. Lola, who have scored 17. Minardi, who have scored 5. Monteverdi and Eurobrunn, who have both scored 3. And Real, who have scored 2. So, an interesting situation for the teams. But Reynard, in their second Grand Prix, genuinely look like they could score a point here. And that's definitely going to give them plenty to shout about heading into the off-season. Here is Ayrton Senna in the McLaren. Still going well in 3rd position, but it's not enough to get away from Jean Alesi. So he's still trying to find that little bit of extra pace. However, he has pulled clear of Stefano Modena, as Boutsen laps Michael Schumacher in the Reynard. But Senna has managed to pull clear of Stefano Modena. And Senna is now doing his best, with the 10-second penalty added, to get clear of Jean Alesi. If he can do that, then he will still hold on to his 3rd place, and that will put him into 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship, behind Riccardo Patrese, who is sat on the sidelines, unable to do anything about the way that this championship battle is now playing out. And Patrese, don't forget, is leading the Drivers' Championship despite not having won a race. Now, Senna is going to rue the fact that he's not winning the Grand Prix, because if he won the Grand Prix today, Ayrton Senna, he would have taken the lead of the Drivers' Championship. But it's sadly not going to be for him today. as he runs in third position, and at the moment that's going to be fourth unless he can pull out another 2 seconds, another 3 seconds actually, on Jean Alesi in the last 7.5 laps of this Italian Grand Prix. Which again is achievable, but he's definitely going to have to work hard to get there. So Thierry Boutsen leads the Italian Grand Prix and looks good for the victory ahead of Alain Prost as Gerhard Berger makes a mistake in the McLaren. Well, Gerhard Berger, one-time championship leader, looking for just a 10th place finish today, and the 1 point that goes with it, that's going to drop him behind his teammate and very nearly championship leader in the ranks. What's happened to Modena? Modena's dropped back. Modena's in 6th place now. And it's because Andrea De Cesaris has made the overtake. Now let's see how it happened. De Cesaris catches Modena. Is there a problem? No. No problem at all for Modena. De Cesaris just decides I've had enough of being sat behind the Ferrari. I'm going to go for it. And De Cesaris makes the move stick. So Andrea De Cesaris now moves into 5th position on home soil in the Italian Grand Prix. And one Italian breaks multiple hundreds of thousands of Italian hearts as De Cesaris passes the Ferrari of Stefano Modena. Senna laps the Ligier there of Nicola Larini, who runs in 15th place behind Damon Hill's Dallara. So Senna is still trying to find that last 2 seconds that will put him ahead of Jean Alesi's Tyrrell. Meanwhile, Alain Prost in the Brabham team is crossing everything he can metaphorically here because he's doing such a good job in 2nd place. He's back to his best, Alain Prost, in the Brabham. They said it would take a few races mid-season for him to click with his new outfit, and that's certainly been the case. But Prost is now really getting to grips with this Brabham. At Monza, he's found a rhythm that he likes, as Thierry Boutsen leads the Italian Grand Prix. Look in the background, there is the Brabham of Alain Prost. So Boutsen cannot rest easy in these last 6 laps of Grand Prix racing here at Monza. He's got to keep pushing, because Alain Prost is not going to let him rest for a moment. And it is a real dynamic grudge match between these two now. As they continue to make progress, they urge each other forward. So it's been a very tough battle as Alain Prost is coming through in 2nd position in the Italian Grand Prix. Oh, someone's in trouble. Someone's in trouble. It's Damon Hill. Damon Hill, I'm afraid, in the Dallara. The car is smoking. So the Converse Dallara in trouble. And that is the leading Converse Dallara, so I'm afraid they are about to go out of this race here in the Italian Grand Prix. And that's a shame. Damon Hill's been doing a solid job today under difficult circumstances. So I'm afraid the Dallara is not quite going to go the distance. 6 laps remain in this Italian Grand Prix, but not for Damon Hill and the Converse Dallara. So his race is ending. He's going to pull off to the circuit's sidelines very shortly indeed. Oh, and that's Capelli stopping. Gearbox failure. So Ivan Capelli is finally pulling off the racetrack as well after his miserable day at the office. So I'm afraid Capelli and Damon Hill out of the race at the same time. That means there's only 16 cars still running the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. In fact, Damon Hill has been going around the circuit for a considerable distance, actually. I don't think he's been willing to believe it's over as the Rini gets very wide. Has he damaged the car in any way? Because we saw Alboreto do that. I think the Rini's actually got away with it. There was a lot of criticism about that Ligier early on in the season, that it wasn't a particularly strong car. They've certainly strengthened it mid-season as Johnny Herbert takes over the mantle of 15th place from his teammate as Damon Hill retires from the Italian Grand Prix. And with the retirement of Ivan Capelli, it's now Roland Ratzenberger who is at the back end of the field, as Gerhard Berger passes the scene in 10th position. Looking good for the final point in this Italian Grand Prix. 5 laps to go, and Prost has got the gap down to 4.2 seconds. That's Bernard having a good side-by-side moment with Ayrton Senna, who has lost a second stuck in the traffic, which is significant because he would have been ahead of Alesi on aggregate, but now Alesi is back on the podium again. So if Senna keeps having problems, then he's going to lose his podium. He needs to find another second in these last 5 laps to get clear of Jean Alesi, and then his 10-second penalty will essentially come to nothing. And I wonder what the other teams are going to feel about that, because essentially Senna will have fought his way back with the penalty and will keep his position on the racetrack by doing so. But obviously he has still been penalised, so they felt that whilst it wasn't a malicious moment, he should have been penalised for it. He was. His car was not damaged, but then nor was Gugelmin's. So Gugelmin was still able to come home in the points. And if the car had been damaged, then he certainly wouldn't have been able to. So maybe that could be the incident and the issue put to bed if Senna can get that extra second clear of Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell. There's Alain Prost in the Brabham. Still having a solid afternoon's racing. 4.2 seconds back from Boutsen. The thing is, he doesn't want to push too hard in the closing stages. He wants to get to the finish and get a podium. But at the same time, he knows how close he is to getting towards Thierry Boutsen. There are 4 laps to go. He's got 4.1 seconds to catch Boutsen. So a part of him will want to go for the victory more than ever before, because there's a great chance to end this bad luck streak he's been on ever since the start of the season. He has finished 1 race all season, and that was a 4th place finish in Mexico in the Ferrari. But in the Brabham, he has yet to finish a Grand Prix, and a 2nd place finish really would give him plenty to smile about. 4 seconds is now the gap, so he's made another 1/10 of a second on Boutsen's Williams. Boutsen is not slowing. He's giving it up everything he's got. He's pushing hard. Here's Senna, 18.2 seconds behind Boutsen, but crucially, he's only 9.1 ahead of Alesi. He needs to be 10.1 ahead as Piquet overshoots and nearly loses the car altogether in the Rettifilio. This is great news for Gugelmin, his countryman, because now the student can become the teacher. Gugelmin's got a run on him. If he can get a chance on Piquet, he's got a chance to get through into 8th position. And that mistake from Piquet has cost him dear. Gugelmin gets through and into 8th position. Nelson Piquet, an embarrassing moment for the Brazilian there, as the sorcerer is conquered by the apprentice, as it were. And Prost still catching. 3 laps to go, and the gap comes down to 3.9. Prost is catching the Williams of Boutsen, but the key factor is not fast enough. So that is a big problem for Brabham. It looks as though they're not quite going to make it. They've given it everything they've got with Alain Prost, but Thierry Boutsen is likely to hold on to this now in the last 3 laps of the Italian Grand Prix. But we've seen this time again in the Grand Prix 2 World Championship. Don't forget the Canadian Grand Prix when Senna was leading, and on the last lap the engine blew coming into the final chicane. The car just didn't have enough juice to get to the finish line, and that handed victory to Jean Alesi and Tyrrell, their first win since 1983, and Alesi's first in Formula 1. And Alesi could still get a podium here if Senna can't get another second up the road, and he is trying to. Then Alesi's going to be on the podium in the Italian Grand Prix, and with his Sicilian ancestry, that's going to make Alesi very proud indeed. If he can keep that 3rd position, Senna may just be about to lose it. But he's got to find something in this final lap, because if he doesn't, he's going to end up on the same amount of points as Mika Hakkinen, rather than being 2 points ahead of him. Unless, of course, Senna can get the fastest lap of the race, and I don't think he can, because that was Thierry Boutsen a short while ago. Here's Prost, and Boutsen and Prost are exchanging sector times now. The gap is steady at 3.9 to 4 seconds now, with 2 laps to go. I just don't see Prost making that final push to get past Thierry Boutsen's Williams. So the Brabham is looking likely to get a 2nd place finish. That's great news. Now here's Modena. He's in more dire straits as he laps Johnny Herbert, but he's got a fast approaching Adrian Fernandez in the Arrows. So Modena needs to keep ahead of Fernandez here, as Johnny Herbert appears to be the next man for Fernandez to deal with. But Modena is trying to get well clear of the Arrows of Fernandez. Now that Arrows looks like it could be a competitive package next year. Certainly with the Ford engines, they've been doing very well, but with BMW engines, they'll have more power next year. So the Arrows team, with team manager Ben Hackson, they could have a very convincing package for 1991. They haven't won a Grand Prix yet. They've had their moments, they've had their close calls in the early 80s. But 1991, they feel, could be their best chance. They'll have a 3-time world champion in Nelson Piquet on their driving strength, and they will have BMW engines. It's their best chance yet of getting it done. Now, Senna is actually losing time to Alesi. He's not gaining time on the Frenchman. Alesi's pushing just that little bit more as Thierry Boutsen goes into the final lap of the 1990 Italian Grand Prix. Here's Prost, 3.8 seconds back. It's not going to be enough. He can't gain that much in one lap on pure speed. The only way he'll do it is if something goes wrong with Boutsen's car now. Whilst Alesi is actually pushing. He knows that he can deny Senna that podium if he puts in some fast lap times. There is Senna. Looking in the background, you might just be able to picture the Tyrrell of Jean Alesi, who I think is going to have this podium place on Senna, unless Senna pulls out the most spectacular lap of his career. But here is Thierry Boutsen in the Williams, and this is going to be his second win of the season if he holds it together for the rest of this lap. This will only be his 4th finish of the year, would you believe? 3rd in Phoenix, a win at Paul Ricard, and the 6th place at Hockenheim. Boutsen seems to have got all the brunt of the Williams misfortune this year, but crucially, he's the only Williams driver to have taken a win. He won the French Grand Prix, and now he comes down the parabolica, comes down the back straight. Prost is catching him, but it's not going to be enough. Boutsen has done it. Into the final corner, into the parabolica. He has kept the Williams absolutely on the straight and narrow throughout. And out of the final turn, Thierry Boutsen wins the 1990 Italian Grand Prix for Williams. His 2nd win of the year. Brilliant, brilliant result. And Alain Prost in the Brabham comes home 2nd. That's a great result for Prost. And he's absolutely delighted. Finally, he gets the podium that he's been after all year long. Here's Ayrton Senna in the McLaren. He will cross the line in 3rd. But crucially, I don't think he's going to finish there, because there's Alesi in the Tyrrell. And Alesi, if he comes across the line within 10 seconds, which I think he's going to, Alesi gets 3rd. Senna is denied the podium by virtue of his penalty. So I think that is justice done. De Cesaris comes home in 5th place. Ferrari have something to celebrate, with Modena in the top 6 for Ferrari. And Fernandez is 7th. Wow, what a thrilling Italian Grand Prix. But it was a thrilling race for the right reasons. We had some great racing all the way throughout from our top drivers. And Thierry Boutsen takes a victory for Williams. And that puts him right up into the fight for the championship himself now. He's got a good opportunity for it if he just keeps these results coming in the last 4 races of the year. Thierry Boutsen wins the Italian Grand Prix for Williams. Prost is 2nd for Brabham. 3rd is Ayrton Senna for McLaren, but he will get a 10-second penalty, and so the podium goes to Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell. De Cesaris is 5th, Modena is 6th, then Fernandez, Gugelmin, Piquet and Berger round out the point scorers. Michael Schumacher 1 position away from his first championship point in Formula 1. Michele Alboreto in 12th, from Eric Bernard and Nicola Larini, Johnny Herbert and Roland Ratzenberger. And then the retirement. Damon Hill with an engine failure, Capelli with the gearbox, Warwick's engine and Leto's gearbox as well. Mansell had an engine failure, as did Frentzen in the Tyrrell. Cheever in the Ligier crashed out, Patrese had a brake failure, Nannini crashed into him, and Hakkinen sheared the gearbox in the early laps of the race. The fastest lap of the race, Thierry Boutsen. Masterclass from the Williams driver today. He really has been exceptional all the way through. Totally deserved the accolades for getting the job done in the fine style in which he did. And that's an absolute thriller for Thierry Boutsen. That makes the championship very tight at the top as Senna gets 8 points on the board. He closes to within 6 points of the championship lead and ties with Mika Hakkinen and Gerhard Berger, with Boutsen scoring big and now getting himself into the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. Alesi scores big with the podium as well. That puts him to 51, which actually puts him 1 point behind Nelson Piquet in the Drivers' Championship. So there's plenty of excitement as we now have 4 races to go and the championship is on. The next race is the Portuguese Grand Prix from Estoril. I'm Jake Sanson. See you for then.